The Alldus podcast is brought to you by Alldus International, supplying your expert AI and digital transformation staffing needs across the US and Europe. Today, you are listening to our AI in Action series, where leading minds in AI from across the world share their story, success, and advice. AI in Action cuts through the hype and explores the true impact of artificial intelligence in our world today.
You're listening to AI in Action. I'm your host, JP Valentine. Our guests today are Christopher Blakey, who is the Senior Director of Data Science at Universal Music Group. With him is Kristian Fryer-Kelsey, who is the Senior Director of Data Analytics. Guys, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Well, we're delighted to have you. I've been looking forward to this one. So we've got a lot to cover. So let's start with some brief introductions so the audience know who they're listening to today. So Blakey, if you wouldn't mind starting with yourself, give us a little bit of background on yourself, please.
Sure. So I've always had a passion for technology in some shape or form. Actually ended up studying not computer science, but ended up going down the music technology route and back into the sort of music industry. And have spent the last 12 years or so basically trying to help shape the way that the company thinks about data and technology to use it in the best way possible to help solve problems for our business.
Yeah, indeed. And you've had quite the impact, which we'll get to in a moment. But Kristian, if you could, just a little background on yourself as well, please.
So, yeah, similar to Blakey, I've been at Universal basically now for the last 12 years. And current position, as you mentioned, is as head of data products at UMG. I basically oversee a product team made up of user researchers, product managers, project managers, data engineers, software engineers, and communication customer support. And we've built this amazing thing that I'd love to, we'll talk a bit more in a bit, but this amazing suite called the UMX suite, which I sort of headed up. So that's all about, as we'll go into more detail, trying to democratize amazing insights and analytics that we've gained from all of the research that Blakey and other people do, and trying to democratize that out to the rest of the business, which is about 10,000 people internally, and then the rest of the thousands of artists and managers and third-party labels that use our products and suites on a daily basis.
Yeah, well, I think that's a great place to start. So, Blakey, from yourself, obviously, anyone who's interested in music, regardless of the industry, has Universal to thank in some respect for some of their favorite artists. You guys are by far the biggest record company in the world. But what's probably not as well known is the complexity of data in the music industry, particularly with the change over the last 20 years or so with the digitization and online movement. Can you give us some insight into your role, your team's role at, just how complex it is working at Universal, dealing with all the complexity that's within the music industry?
And you sort of hit the nail on the head there. It is a passion industry for the end sort of consumer who loves music and loves listening to music. But what it creates for us, which is a challenge of working in this space, is how complex the landscape can look when you think about the music campaigns and music marketing, in terms of the fact that we're not talking about a small number of marketing channels that we have at our disposal. We're talking about a very large array of different avenues and different platforms and areas that our marketing teams at Universal have to be extremely proactive and synchronized to execute across all of these different channels pretty much in parallel at the same time. So when you think about the things, we're not just talking about social and CRM and digital advertising, but when you throw in things like TV syncs, interviews, radio, press, playlisting, influencers, and all that comes around that, you have this very dynamic, complex space that we sort of data practitioners within the business need to try and help our labels and our marketing teams understand in the best way so that they can be as effective as possible at the job that they do. And I think the other important thing to note about the differences in the music industry versus, many other industries, we're not just talking about one or two products or a couple of brands that we're trying to market. We're talking about thousands and thousands of artists that are releasing content every year, and that creates many campaigns across the board. And what that means is we have a very large amount of information and data to look at to really start to understand how we can be better and how we can optimize and be more effective, helping the marketing teams deliver what they need to do.
Blakey, is there a particular project that you guys have worked on recently that best encapsulates just how complex the problem is, but also the strides and successes that UMG is having in tackling this problem? Something that would represent just how difficult it is to market all these various artists and deal with all the moving parts at any one time.
Yeah, so how we've been approaching this the last couple of years is we've been putting a lot of effort into developing marketing effectiveness and measurement tools. And we've really been focusing on tackling this in sort of two parallel directions that actually work together to help us really learn and understand the landscape in a much richer way than we could previously. And what we're doing with these tools is, on one side, we're looking at the full marketing mix of what's happening with all of our artist campaigns across, every market, and being able to ask questions about what parameters we can tweak and change to drive optimizations through our advertising efforts, looking on the holistic level. And in combination of that, we then build out other tools that allows us to focus in and really actually test things in real life, enable us to actually run very targeted A/B testing campaigns to prove or disprove whether the things that we're seeing holistically are actually how things pan out in reality. And what this means for us as a business, that we can use these very sophisticated testing methodologies that we've developed to really help drive strategic change across the business about how we think about marketing efforts and our advertising, and how best to use those in the most effective way to really optimize.
Excellent, and thank you for that. I want to bring Kristian back in here. He was kind enough to give me some private demos last week of some of the incredible work that you guys are doing right now. So Kristian, whatever you could share about the UMX platform, I'm sure everyone listening would love to learn about what you guys are working on, because it really is fascinating.
So yeah, at Universal, we have a data product suite called UMX, which we've mentioned a couple of times. So if anyone wants to learn a bit more, there's a website called x.umusic.com, which is public, which you can go to and you can see some sort of images and enrich this interview with some visual elements. But yeah, so x.umusic.com. And in there, it just showcases our 4 major flagship products. So ultimately, if you think about UMG, Universal's like overarching goals, we try to align our apps to meet UMG's overarching goals. So spot trends. So number one would be to spot trends in the marketplace to determine which artists to sign. So for that, we've got a product called Universal Music Discover, which is all about, Blakey will talk about it in a bit, or we've spoken about it a bit already, but like we get a rich amount of information that comes from Apple, Spotify, Amazon, Deezer, Pandora, and all those things on our own artists, which has really helped change the game over the last like 20 years since the digitization of music. But externally, when you're trying to work out which artists to sign, it's not this lovely rich data that we're getting from there. It's all about trying to crawl and find and look for all of these different signals out in the marketplace, to help us understand, as a dance A&R in Germany, in Berlin, who is the latest unsigned talent that's starting to rise up, whether it be across SoundCloud, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, and then across TikTok and Facebook, Instagram, and all that sort of information coming into one place. And so that tool is specifically aimed to try and help Universal find the latest talent and as early as possible to avoid us being in like bidding wars with other other labels, etc., which definitely happens. So that's that product there, Universal Music Discover. Then we've got our second sort of product. So the second sort of key point there is to understand user habits in order to engage as many fans as possible. So that's that rich information I just talked about. So the stuff from Apple and Amazon and Spotify, etc. There, it's all about trying to garner insights to take that artist that we've just signed via Universal Music Discover and turn them and make them a breaking artist, grow their audiences, and then obviously the holy grail there is to turn everyone into a global superstar, which we are the best at doing. So that part there is like saying you've got some fans in this area, you've got this going, and like Blakey was talking like about our media mix model and our testing frameworks that we have there, those things are coming and in a part of UMX. Not every aspect as we grow them and we prototype them out, but then they eventually come in to this product that we have, which is Universal Music Labels. So that one is our sort of flagship one. It's for marketeers. It's about growing your artist, giving you the insights to help take your artist from breakthrough, from just signed to breakthrough to global superstar. The last one we have in like our key areas that we align with the Universal overarching goals is to facilitate like the data communication education of our artist managers, third-party labels, and our labels as well, by providing easy and actionable insights. And that really falls in the line of our sort of flagship product, which is called Universal Music Artists. And that also, shameless cry out here, but there's a website, universalmusicartist.com. You can go there, you can see a really amazing video about what the app does and how it's powered by data science and all those things. But Universal Music Artist is the same sort of data. It's exactly the same data that we provide our labels internally. So we're very proud that there's what the artists get, what the artist manager get, we get internally, but it's on mobile. It's on the mobile device and it's easy and really user friendly. We worked with a third party company, really get the UX and the design perfectly sweet and work with our artist managers to really make it as user friendly as possible. So that to me, there's a couple of other products, but I think for today, those parts are they're really our flagship ones. And like I said, you can learn more about the other ones from the website I gave previously.
You are listening to the Alldus podcast. When you're looking to scale your team, or if you are interested in showcasing your company in a future episode, reach out today. Or if you're in the market for a new role, visit our website to view open positions, www.alldus.com.
Blakey, I'll come back to you because we were talking about it earlier, that the feedback you're getting from leaders in tech about this is also really important to share. So if you wouldn't mind just giving us some insight to what the market is responding to these new advancements.
I mean, with some of the projects we're working on, obviously working very closely with some of our big partners in the sort of ad tech space and the marketing space, but it's great to see and get recognition that what we're doing is being gold stamped as best in class in terms of how we approach these problems, because ultimately that's the goal for us. We want to be able to do things in the most sophisticated way and make sure that we are viewing this through the lens in the correct way to ensure that by the time it gets to our end users in terms of our marketeers, that it will help them make the best decisions in terms of what they take as a next action. So to get approval from the big ad giants of Google and Facebook in terms of how we are approaching things is a great recognition.
Yeah, completely agree. Because I want to switch direction a little bit now with the few minutes we have left, because I want to talk about the team that you guys have built and scaled, the cross collaboration culture. You guys are a global team, but still very tight knit. And Blakey and Kristian, for you guys specifically, you've been there since you were interns. So can you give us some insight into what it's like behind the scenes? I'm sure like many people listening, I'm fascinated about the combination of data science, AI within music. So what's it like for you guys? What's it like to be part of the team there?
Yeah, so that I think is really unique, the fact that to the music industry and to Universal, that like you mentioned, both Blakey and I started as interns and been given the opportunities to just work our way up through the ranks. And me personally, but also Blakey as well, we've been fortunate to kind of like every few years reinvent ourselves in different roles. Like Blakey started as an intern working in anti-piracy, where he was crawling websites to see where things were appearing illegally. But then they realized, oh, us crawling all these websites, we can crawl social places, other websites, and then start to pull that information into one place. And then you turned a threat of anti-piracy into a strength. And we're able to give great insights to the company. Sorry, Blakey, stealing your thunder a little bit there. And then personally for me, I started as an intern and then was as a global account manager working on Spotify and Apple campaigns. And then I got into data because I, like Blakey, always fascinated in tech and also music. And this company gave me that opportunity to combine those roles. And at this time, none of these roles existed within the music industry. So both Blakey and I have created these roles and the journeys within the company. And I think that's great testament to Universal that we were given that opportunity to just drive, down that path and create it as we went along. And Universal 6 years ago moved me from UK to LA. So that, it's just another testament that if you're good at what you do and you're really passionate about music, this company will open those doors for you. And I think in general, I feel that's how the music industry works. Well, at least at Universal. And if you're passionate about music, there's a family here for you to be a part of.
And it's constantly, I think one of the reasons that is so prolific here is because the industry's constantly changing and adapting to changes in, the market and the way that consumption of music happens as well. But what that means is it creates a really interesting environment where the problems are always changing and evolving as the industry evolves as well. So it's in a way a sense that it's the engagement and the excitement around working on problems in this space never really stops because there's always new problems that we need to solve and be able to tackle.
Yeah. And then talking about that's Universal as like a whole and the way that we've worked, but then how do we work as a part of the global data analytics team? So we're 30 people headed up by our fearless leader, Mitchell Szymanski. And then underneath that, you've got data science, you've got the data products world, which I look after, Chris on the data side, Nick Moxham on the marketing science, and a couple of other people within the team. But the three of us, we work very well across the globe. Like Blakey's in London, part of his team's in Florida, a member of his team's in Atlanta. I'm currently in Brazil and have been working out of Portugal. And we've just been making stuff happen. Nick Moxham's based in London at the moment and part of LA. So between the three of us, we very cross-collaborational. We really have cultivated a very user-centric modus operandi amongst the three of us, which is we really look to solve the biggest problems of the company. I'm going off a bit of a tangent here, but we go and find out what the biggest problems are. We lead everything via user research. And then between the three of us and our teams, we go and solve those problems as best as we can. And one of the modes that we do that, and one of the things we really love using or methods to do this is design sprints. Some solutions to problems can just be solved quite easily, and then we just can work that out in a silo in one of the teams. But some of the bigger problems that we try to tackle, and there are plenty, require all of the minds across like the 30 members of the team. And so when we do that, we go into design sprint mode. So we get as many different teams and members as possible in one room or virtually. And we set ourselves an agenda. We pull hot off the press the most recent user research that's happened, the problems. We've got audio recordings that come from these users that really help us get into the meat of what the problem is and who we're trying to solve for. And then you have the power of the minds to come together. And what we do is we try and time box it. We do it within 5 days. We listen to the problems. The next day, we ideate solutions to those. Then we present them back to the original users and say, if you had to vote on these in terms of how useful they'd be, could you rank these? And then based off of that, that's what we go ahead. When you're given too much time, and generally how it's worked previously is you want to build that user a rocket ship, every feature they could possibly want. And the beauty of time boxing and putting into these design sprints mean that we just settle ourselves and just creating a skateboard instead of the rocket ship, not the fancy car, not the push bike, but a skateboard. So by the end of the Friday, those users are left with something, whether it's even an Excel spreadsheet or it's an alert or it's an app, a very basic one. They'll be left with something that they can then actually use, and then we'll work with them to then grow that out over time. But the beauty is that we have data science, the product team, the user researchers, the developers, everyone is in there coming up with great ideas. And we're a very multi-ethnic and gender team. It's not just, we get as many different types of points of view as we possibly can. And that's what the beauty of is this as well, is that we bring all those different types of minds together and come up with some amazing things.
It sounds like an amazing place to work, and having seen the products that you're working on, the impact that they're having, they're revolutionizing the industry. It's great to hear that it's also an amazing place to work, because your end product is music, which we all love, and what you guys are doing is really helping us stay current, and you're almost creating the new market conditions. So what a great place to leave it. Blakey, Kristian, thank you both so much for coming on today. This has been amazing. I really appreciate you sharing what's going on behind the scenes, and we're excited to see what impact it can continue to have. So thank you both.
Oh, thanks a lot, mate. Thank you for having us. Really appreciate being on. So great to share our stories. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It's been great.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Alldus podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. We are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and any Android podcast of choice. You can also head over to our website, www.alldus.com, to listen to more podcasts, view our open roles, and stay up to date with industry news. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for more great episodes coming very soon.